Hi and welcome into another video. Today we'll be talking about very important thing, which is security in AWS, and we will talk about the very basic concept of it regarding security groups. So let's hop into AWS console and see it in action. Alright, so we are in our AWS console, and today, as mentioned already, we will be talking about security groups. So security groups are in the VPC here, and there are two main concepts in VPC about the security. One is network ACLs, which we will talk in another video, and security groups. Security groups, you can call it a little bit as a firewall to your EC2 instances. So let's create ourselves a new security group, and then we will spin up EC2 instance and attach this security group to it and see how it all relates and connects. So as you can see here, we have two things. So group name, let's call it briefly SG, and allow HTTP and SSH. We will create our rules to allow for HTTP on port 80 and SSH on port 22. By default, outbound rules is for all traffic, and we will create inbound rules. So when creating inbound rules in security groups are what is called stateful. So if we create a rule to allow some kind of a traffic, it will be automatically also allowed as an outbound one. So here you can choose from many different stuff like all TCP, custom TCP, and you can decide even on a port range. We can do all traffic, and we can do from the predefined list of services. So let's go with those predefined. We will go SSH. Custom will allow for anywhere, so it will be 0.0.0.0/0, and let's add another rule for HTTP in the same manner. So let's do that. Let's create a security group, and then let's launch ourselves an EC2 instance. Let's launch briefly one, and here we will leave Amazon Linux, Tito Micro. We don't need the key pair. We will log in through EC2 Connect from the AWS console, and here we will auto-assign public IP as enabled and select existing security group. We will use the security group which we created. The rest we will leave as is. And let's go to this particular instance. It should take around 10 to 15 seconds to spin up. It's still pending. Let's go to this instance to know already more details, and it's already in running state, and here is the public IP address. So let's go to our local Ubuntu server and let's try to SSH there. And we get a response. We don't have a key pair, so we will not be able to log in, but as you can see, the connectivity is there. If we will do a curl to it on HTTP, we'll get failed, but the failed it's not from the security group, but that by default in Amazon Linux we don't have a HTTP server. So let's go to connect. Let's use EC2 instance connect. We'll be able to SSH to this instance, and we will install Nginx, which is a web server. Alright, we are on our EC2 instance, and as you can see, SSH is working, because if SSH would be blocked, this would also not work. So let's do sudo yum update to update the list of the packages, and let's do sudo yum install Nginx, And let's do sudo systemctl status nginx to see the status of the nginx server. It will be disabled. Let's do start to start it. And let's also do enable. Enable would allow for it to auto start with the system launch. And let's go back and let's do a curl one more time. And we see a very basic response from HTTP, so that works. We can also do it here in the browser, and as you can see, everything works. So security groups have one more great thing which we can talk about right now. So we'll get back here, and actually if we will go to the security and this security group, we know that we created those two rules and the source is from everywhere. The great thing about the security groups is that actually we don't need to point an IP address as a source, but we can point the security group. So actually, let's go to this security group, and what we will do, we will change those inbound rules. We will change those inbound rules, and we will make them not to be the source from everywhere, but only from this particular security group. It's a very common pattern that you create some EC2 instances in the same security group and allow them to connect to each other. So let's delete all of that and let's add it one more time. We'll do SSH, but right now we will take custom and we will take SG, and we will allow for the SSH traffic to go, but only from this security group itself. And let's do the same for HTTP, and let's also do custom, and let's do this security group. Let's save this rule, and now we will able to see from here that it won't be working anymore. So it will be timing out because we removed the allow of the access on security groups from everywhere, only to make it restricted to the security group. So either SSH, either HTTP doesn't work. Let's go to EC2 instances one more time, and let's spin up yet another instance in the same security group. So we will do launch instance. We will do briefly 2, and maybe we will show also one more thing. So actually you don't need to you are not like constrained to only one security group. I will show you what I mean. So we will use this actual wizard to spin up yet another EC2 instance, and we will create a new security group to allow SSH traffic from anywhere. It will be called launch wizard 1, but we don't care about it. Let's create another security group and another EC2 instance. We will go to it. Let's wait a moment for it to be from pending to running. Okay, we have an instance in a running state, and here let's check security of the second instance. So we have a briefly 2 instance, that's what we call it, and this one has a new security group called launch wizard from the wizard of EC2 launch, and it allows for SSH traffic. So let's use EC2 instance connect, and let's connect to it. We'll be able to do so because the SSH traffic is allowed. And now, if we would like to get access to this instance, this first one, let's get back to it. Let's check this first instance, and it has a public IP and private IP. So we can even check like on both. Let's see SSH on a public IP, nothing happens, and let's see SSH on a private IP, nothing happens. And let's right now go to this instance, this briefly2, which we just created, and we are logged into it here. Briefly.2, that was the instance. And action security, change security groups, and here we only have this launch wizard 1, which allows for SSH traffic from anywhere. And let's add here our security group that we created before, in which the instance briefly-1 is residing. And let's save that. And right now, let's get back to this and let's try to SSH from the second instance to the first one. And now it is possible because we allowed for the internal security traffic to come up, and we did it on a private IP because, as you will see here, if I will do it on a public one, I will have a timeout. You need to remember that if we are allowing for such traffic on the security groups level, you should use private IPs. And we will also be able to curl the HTTP. So we are getting it back. Let's switch one more time for all the public ones, and it will still not be possible. So that's a hands-on and brief overview of security groups and AWS. Hope you learned something, and see you next time.